Okay, so today we're going to talk about the first few things you should do as a killer main. If you've never played DBD before, if you're at like ground zero, if you're looking at getting more into killer from survivor side, then this is going to be a great overview on the very basics of what to do, what to be aware of, how to get started, because it can be quite intimidating, some tips, and looking at what killers are best to start off with and get the base mechanics. Now, obviously DBD has a lot of killers now, and we've got Wesker coming as well, and I will talk about Wesker, though you won't see him, I will talk about him. You've got the main ones that are built into the game, so you get Trapper, Wraith, Hillbilly, Nurse, Huntress, and then you'll have others that you'll have to pay for with either in-game currency, and then you'll have others that you'll have to pay for with money, like Onryo or Nemesis or Pyramid Head, which tend to be your licensed killers. So if you've just got the base game, you already got a fair bit of amount, you can choose to just do a grind. It takes about, if you have player level, you'll have to max this out about once to comfortably get enough shards to buy a killer, roughly. Or you can just go online and just do a deal, and you can get some killers already packaged in, which is what I did, or just buy them all separately or buy the ones you want. I personally like having all the killers, and I think it's good to have all the killers because then you don't get bored so easily of one killer and you can hop around and you can try all different things. So I think personally it's worth going the whole hog and getting the whole lot at once of what it is you want. When it comes to looking at killers to play, the first thing you have to decide is what mindset do you want? Do you want to be a competitive player and you're all going to be about high MMR and maximizing your skills and maximizing your kills? You're going for the 3 kill, 4 kill every game? Or are you going to be someone that wants to be more casual and just play the killers you enjoy? I, as a person, sit kind of in the middle, so I play a lot of Onryo because I love Sadako. I love the theme of Sadako. She's not the strongest killer. She has her perks, she has her strengths, but she also has a lot of weaknesses. Whereas you'll find a lot of people in the high-end world will tend to go to Spirit as one. They'll come to Nurse because of Nurse's ability. And then the other strong one at the top will be Blight. And I have noticed a bit more Pyramid Head and Nemesis coming in. Pyramid Head a lot more with the fact that he can stop a lot of the hooks and what's going on because he can cage people, and he can bypass a lot of perks that people rely on now, especially with the new built-in BT and everybody taking a lot more things like off the record, and he can get around a lot of that. And then Nemesis again for a lot of the anti-loop still. But when you're starting out, some killers you can argue are more difficult, and yes, some of them have harder powers to master. And then some killers are a lot easier and a lot more straightforward. So we're going to work our way through. We're going to talk about what each killer does, where it's good to look at. So we start off with Trapper. Trapper's very, very easy. Trapper is a chase killer. He's all about chasing you down. He has a normal terror radius, and he has the normal max speed, and he is tall. His base perks are pretty good. So Unleavened Presence is very good for putting on some pressure when people are trying to do gens or they're trying to heal. Brutal Strength is very good for getting rid of pallets very quick, as well as hitting generators quicker. And hitting generators is now a much bigger thing since the update, because we're already going to do 2.5%. And Agitation can be very good for people, especially seeing a lot more boil over now, and you're seeing a lot more people trying to go corner maps to try and stop you hooking. And Agitation can also be great for when we come to Scourge perks, because we have a lot more leeway in getting to them, which is why I like to take Agitation. It's more through that. The ability to have more options to hook is the main piece I like about it, as well as be able to get a cheeky hit in. I think it's a very underrated perk personally. So he's all about traps. So the main way to look at Trapper is you want to place traps in one of two places. Either inside loops to make strong loops weaker, or to place them in awkward places where you think survivors will go to get them off guard. That can be bushes, hiding around just simple corners, on stairs, places where they least expect, or they haven't got time to get around when you're chasing them. Because obviously if they turn around in a corridor, you're going to smack them. If they carry on forward, they have to go into the trap. Especially now, Dead Hard doesn't do what it does anymore. To avoid this, it's got much more versatility to it. So that's what Trapper's about. Trapper's very, very easy to play, very easy to get around. Then we can come on to the Wraith. So Wraith is a stealth killer. So Wraith is very much about sneaking up on survivors very quickly when you're decloaked, uncloaking, hitting, rinse, repeat. He does have normal speed, so he can also chase uncloaked quite well as well. And he has a slightly larger the normal terror radius. 32, I'd say, is on the larger end, and you have some killers with a smaller terror radius. Obviously, your terror radius is when survivors can start hearing that you're approaching, so the music will start coming in and they can tell how close you are, as well as things like spine chill, it'll activate that a lot more. And some skills rely on terror radius to effect, such as Starstruck. Pros and cons to a large and a small terror radius that you should be aware of. I'll talk about that later. Predator, which is basically useless. There's no point in seeing scratch marks closer together. Bloodhound, which is also just basically useless. And then Shadowborn, which some people do take. I think Shadowborn is a lot better on ranged killers, such as Huntress and Pyramid Head. And it can be good on Blight as well, because you get more of an angle to see where survivors are going, to line up your shots or to line up your snipes. Or with Blight to get a better idea of where you can bounce off on tiles with his ability. Outside of that, I don't find much use for it. I find the Doctor's perk is the better one when it comes to field of view increases. So Wraith is very, very simple. The only thing you have to be aware of when you're Wraith is to look at flashlights, because flashlights will instantly take him out of his camouflage. And the bell does take a bit of time to hit, but there are add-ons that you can use to deal with that. We're not going to bother talking about add-ons in this at the moment. I just want to give you standard overviews of each killer. So the Wraith is very easy to use. He isn't the strongest, but his big strength is he can get around the map very quickly when he's decloaked. Coming on, we have the Hillbilly. Billy is what we call an M2 killer. So most killers have one of two attacks. You have M1, which is your normal hit a survivor with it. You'll just put him into the injured state or then the dying state. Or he has an M2, which is his chainsaw. He's built very much for going in straight lines. Some people do what we call a drift Billy with certain add-ons, which means you can basically become a drift king chainsaw murdering machine, which can be hardcore. He's all about putting pressure in loops. He's all about using the chainsaw to get across the map very quickly, but don't expect it to be reliable. He suffers more on indoor maps because of all the tight corners and all the tight loops that you have around. He's better on open maps. Again, he has standard larger terror radius and he has standard speed, so he's okay in chase. He hasn't got any abilities to get around it, and he can use the chainsaw to put pressure on certain loops. Say you're at a pallet, he can use it on the pallets. He can use it to try and bait you to come back over and instantly take you out. He's very good with perks that will hide you. So such as Trail of Torment, because you can use that hit Trail of Torment, you then become unaware on survivors' terror radiuses, and you can use that to snipe. That's also very good. Enduring, which shortens pallet stuns, which can be very good for people who need an extra bit of help in chase, especially mixed with perks such as Spirit Fury or again Brutal Strength. Lightborne, which can be an incredibly good perk and could be very underrated in my opinion, especially if you're up against a load of flashlight. Lightborne's got like a divided opinion. A lot of people don't understand what Lightborne is for. Lightborne means that when you pick up a survivor, if they flash a flashlight in your face, you won't drop the person you picked up because you can't be stunned by it, and you also can't be stunned at perks. And it also means you'll see that person's aura for 10 seconds. Mixed with Lethal Pursuer, that will go up even more. Now, the ability just to see them behind walls and stuff is brilliant when you're pallet stunned. The ability to see them once you drop someone is very good as well, because if you hook them very quickly after being blinded, you know exactly where they are and you can pursue. But the big mistake people make is they make it obvious they've taken Lightborne. So what do I mean by this? If you're at a pallet and you're allowing someone just to blind you in the face, they'll very quickly work out it doesn't matter. If you're knocking that pallet out and then coming out of the tile, and then you're pursuing them straight away, it's very obvious you have Lightborne. As soon as they know you have Lightborne, they won't bother blinding you anymore, so you can't take advantage of the perk. If you pick someone up, try and make it look like you're avoiding the flashlight at all times. That way they question if you have it or not. They might have done the blind too early, they might have done the blind too late, if that's even possible. They might not have the right angle, things like that. Lightborne you need to mind game with to get the best value of. Mix Lightborne with perks such as Starstruck and it can become incredibly powerful because you can't be blinded. With Agitation, get the sneak on survivors very quickly with Starburst if they're in a group and they're trying to dual blind you and take them straight out. It could be a very, very strong utility perk. Bane of Lightborne is, if nobody takes flashlights, it's useless. One might find one in the chest during the game, which case you get a bit of value out of it. I always take it there's at least 2 flashlights. The only other thing to be aware of is Lightborne can also be counteracted with Franklin's. So Franklin's is a perk that when you hit someone, they'll drop their item. There's no point in taking both, because obviously if you're taking Franklin's, if you're hitting someone with a flashlight, they're dropping their flashlight anyway. And the beauty of Franklin's is Franklin's will affect any item that a survivor is carrying, whether it be a map, a toolbox, a med kit, or a flashlight, which in my mind is more powerful in some cases and less powerful in others. So obviously if toolboxes are normally used straight away, so unless you're going to get sneak on straight away, there's no point. On med kits it can be very, very good, but then again you might want to use med kits because you want people, say a nurse is calling, to heal, to find them, and you want to abuse that. Or with flashes, you can just take Lightborne and have the aura read and then play the mind games around it. So when it comes to Lightborne and Franklin's, you've got to think two very different ways about it. Then we come on to Tinkerer. Tinkerer I used to take a lot. It used to be a very, very good perk. It still is a good perk, but it's been nerfed significantly because now it can only trigger once on each generator. When a generator is at 70% repair, bear in mind generators now take 90 seconds, they're longer, so you'll have a slightly longer wait on each gen to get there, but you also got slightly more room to get there before the generator is completed. You'll have undetectable, which means survivors cannot hear your terror radius, and you can then sneak up on them. Now this used to be great because what you could do is if you had a gen that was on high pressure, you can go and kick it, leave. When the survivors are close to doing it again you would trigger off, you can go back over there and you could rinse and repeat. Now it's only once. This perk has kind of been counterbalanced by discordance in a way, but also not. It's very good on killers that can teleport, such as Sadako and Dredge, because you'll see that where they are on a generator, you see it's almost done, teleport over there, smack, put pressure on. But other than that, I find on killers that have to walk around, it can be a lot less useful because you haven't got the ability to instantly go backwards and forwards all the time. So that's Billy. So Billy, like I said, is all about straight lines, likes open maps, get your chainsaws in, hit them, make sure you don't overheat it, and then do your thing. Then we'll come over to Nurse. Nurse is often talked about as the strongest killer in the game. There is a very valid reason for this. Nurse is very slow. Okay, Nurse has a standard larger terror radius. Okay, but it's her ability. She has the ability to blink. So what you do is you get 2 blinks standard. You charge up, you blink, and you'll move, and you can move through anything. You can move through walls, you can move through pallets, you can move through gens, you can move through people, you can move through trees, you can move through ceilings, you name it, you can move through it. And this is what makes her so strong, because she can literally work her way around any loop. She can't be looped because she can go through anything. She's very hard to spin because of the speed that she has. And she is very hard to mind game because what you would normally mind game, she just goes through anyway. You can't put mind games around, say, Shack, because she can just go fucking through Shack and she's on the other end. That's it. Well, there's nothing you can do about it. So how do you counter Nurse? Well, Nurse is generally countered in 2 ways by survivors. One, when she blinks, they run back towards you, so you overshoot. Or 2, they use flashlights on you. If you have a flashlight put on you, it can actually stop your blinks. So these are the 2 things you have to be aware of when you play Nurse. Nurse takes time to master. I am shocking with Nurse. I very rarely play Nurse. I personally don't enjoy Nurse, that's why I don't play her. I'm more of a chase killer. That's more the way I like to play. I like chases. She kind of is a chase killer but isn't, because she breaks them so quick. She's very much about ending chases very, very quickly. She doesn't want a long chase because she hasn't got the ability to get to survivors quickly to start more chases. So you want to end chases very quickly with Nurse. Hook, put pressure on very early, very quickly, and just keep going. Her 3 main perks are Strider, which makes breathing louder. This perk can be good on Nurse, but it's better on someone like Spirit, especially if they're taking Iron Will. This is a very good perk. I'm not going to pretend, like Thanatophobia, I think is how you pronounce it. So every time you injure a survivor, you're slowing them down. You're slowing them down on Repair, Sabo, and Totem. This is very, very strong with the new Gen nerf, because now gens take 90%, that 12% really starts adding up, which is why it's a very common perk. It's very common on Legion as well, because Legion can wound people very quickly. And Nurse's Calling, which I think is a fantastic perk, especially now that we're seeing a lot of Circle of Healing, we're seeing a lot of medkits come in, we're seeing a lot of people healing because they are protected by perks such as Off the Record. To me, this is an absolutely crucial perk today, because you're going to constantly see them when they're healing all the time, no matter where they're hiding. Granted, 28 meter ranges at the largest, but one of the best things you can do as a killer is keep pressure on survivors that are injured, because obviously every time someone who's injured is healed, it's undoing the work you've already done, and it's doubling up your chases because you have to hit them twice. If you constantly have survivors either exposed or injured, you only have to hit once, which is perfect for when you're sniping people, perfect for when you're sneaking up on people, and it's perfect when you need to end chases quickly and put pressure on again quickly, which is why I think Nurse's Calling is such a good perk. But yeah, you got to have your patience with Nurse. I did not advise going in with her straight away, because Nurse works very, very differently. Nurse's mindset is very different. You have to look at loops very differently, and you're not going to get used to working tiles as all other killers, because most other killers work differently. So to me, she's much more, if you want to play her, you've got to be very disciplined, and you should have a good game awareness already. So I wouldn't start off with Nurse in any shape or form. Huntress. Huntress is a ranged killer, bunny lady. Huntress is a bit slower, only a bit, but she can still catch up. She can still be quick enough in certain chases. She has a much smaller terror radius, which means you can snipe a lot more successfully, and you can get the jump on survivors a lot successfully, which means you haven't got to worry so much about this slower speed. However, because of this slower speed, you've got to be much more careful of perks such as live or sprint burst, because that distance is going to be a lot harder for you to catch up on, especially as you've got anything to propel across. But that's where your hatchets come in. So she starts off with 5 hatchets basic. She has to wind them up, and they don't shoot in like a straight line. They do have a bit of like an arch to them. And the more you charge them up, the more of like a straighter line they tend to go, and the quicker they'll move as well. So the main way to look at Huntress is, the two main things you want to be aware of, you'll throw hatchets quicker than you will M1, which is very good for things like hooks, but obviously you need time to charge up. But the main place you'll find you're using hatchets is at windows. When people are about to vault, you'll throw them and hit them there. In open fields going across, for shack it can be very good, going across diagonally or across into the window. But the main thing you want to be aware of against playing survivors with hatchets is they will bait your hatches. You'll find they'll bait a lot more windows. So in other words, they'll go up to a window, but they'll divert last second and actually do it. So your hatchet will go straight across. And they'll bait a lot more straight line stuff. So they'll move left and right, or they'll duck. The other thing you've got to be aware of hatchets is like, it can be a bit funny on what things the hatchets will collide with and what things they'll go over. And you can do a lot of special snipes like between gaps of things, but it can be a bit hit and miss. And obviously when you run out of hatchets, you need to go to a locker to refill up. I find the best way to play Huntress is to play it a bit more hybrid. So I find you want to use hatchets in one of two ways. Only use hatchets when you've got a clear shot. You can use hatchets to put pressure on survivors' decisions in loops. I.e. if they're in a straight line and you hold a hatchet up and there's a window, they might have to take the window straight away, otherwise you're going to hit them in the straight corridor and they haven't got a choice. So you can divert survivors with it, or they have to go around a corner. And you can also use it when you see like a gen go, or you see a gen that doesn't know is being worked on, or a hook. You can throw it to make people know you're aware they're there, to make them either move or move out the way, or even potentially be hit, be sniped, and put pressure on that way. That's the main ways I tend to use it. She could be a very, very strong killer, especially in the right hands. You'll find the other good thing you can do as a technique is you can do window baiting on her side. So what you do is as you walk past the window, you pull your hatchet out and charge it up, then you walk back into the window and then you throw it. Spooky Loops does that a lot. He's very good to watch for that. And that's the general principle. It's fine, use your hatchets to sort of get around loops, but don't rely on them too hard. And then, yeah, close the gap very quickly, but be aware of speed perks. She has Beast of Prey, which makes you undetectable once you see Bloodlust 1. What Bloodlust is when you're chasing after so long, you'll get a bit quicker, and then when you reach Blood 2, you're even quicker, and Bloodlust 3, you're even quicker after that, to when the chase is quicker. When she gets Bloodlust 1, she then basically moves at normal speed, killer speed. But obviously, if you break a pallet or hit by a pallet, it negates Bloodlust, you have to be careful of that. So when you're thinking about Bloodlust with Huntress, I'd very much avoid breaking pallets a lot unless you're out of chase, because you have the ability of hatchets to avoid pallets or go around pallets or pallet loops, so you can keep the bloodlust, because she needs the speed. She has to have the speed, especially if she's slower already. It can be a good perk on other killers. I've used Beast of Prey a few times on Sadako, and it's actually been quite good, because where she's shorter and hard to see, as soon as she's undetectable, she can get around small loops and pallets and jump survivors sometimes unexpectedly, because she's got the undetectable. But it's not the strongest perk in the world, and the blood point increase you don't really notice much. Imperative. Survivors also ability 3 seconds when they enter the basement. Just don't bother with it, there's no point. And then we've got Hex, Huntress, Lullaby. This could be a very, very strong perk, especially when mixed with other skill check perks. So, survivors receive a 6% regression penalty when missing a skill check while healing or repairing. Each time a survivor is hooked, Huntress Lullaby grows in power. So, the time between skill check warning and sound of the skill check becomes shorter, between 1 and 4 seconds, and then 5 seconds is no skill check warning. When you mix this with perks that in the terror radius make skill checks even quicker, it can make healing very, very difficult. It can make doing gens very, very difficult. It can be a very, very strong perk. Just make sure your hex isn't destroyed by survivors. And it could be a very, very, very strong. The shape. So we all like a bit of Michael Myers. He is much more he's kind of like a hybrid between a stealth killer, stalker killer, and a chase killer. So he has normal speed, very, very, very small terror radius, until he starts upping up his evil within. So the main premise of the shape is you'll hide and you'll stalk a survivor. You can stalk all 4, but you can only stalk all 4 up to so much, and eventually you'll cap. And as you stalk them, your evil within will go up. So eventually you'll reach 2 and you'll stay in 2, which means your movement speed goes up and your basic attack speed goes up. Or increased lunge, sorry. And then when you're evil within 3, survivors become exposed. So that means you can instantly put them down, which is very, very, very strong. The main technique people tend to do is they'll sit on evil with 2, they'll 99 it, so you get right to the edge. And then when you're in chase, as soon as you know you're going to get the hit, you quickly stalk them, put yourself in evil within 3 so they're exposed, hit, end the chase straight away. Or if you've got the jump on the gen, straight away tier 3, smack. He's a very, very simple killer to use in my eyes. He's not the strongest killer, though he can be very nasty when everybody's exposed. With add-ons such as Tombstone, he can come very, very, very strong. The ability to instantly kill survivors is ridiculous. But again, it's a one-trick pony, so be aware of it. So here's 3 main perks. Save the best for last. Could be a very, 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 very good perk for chases. Each time a token grants a 5% decrease on successful basic attack cooldowns, you can go up to 8. This can be very strong in loops, and for killers who are strong in chase, because when you're hitting, the cooldown is so quick, and already the cooldown's been nerfed and the gap survivors get has been nerfed. So this can be huge in chase when you get it right up there, because you're decreasing the window so much. Play with your food. When you have the obsession, which will be someone on the left hand side with a little logo around them that you'll see, every time you let him escape, you'll gain up to 3 tokens. Each token increases your movement speed by 5%, and then performing a basic attack will reduce this. This can also be very good. This can be very good in early game as well, getting high pressure on for hits. But on late game, it can become a bit weaker, I find. And then we have Dying Light. Your obsession gains a 33% action speed bonus to unhooking and healing other survivors. Each time you hook a survivor other than the obsession, if the obsession is alive, they'll gain a token. If the obsession is alive, all survivors who are not the obsession get a 3% penalty to repair, healing and sabotage speeds for each token. This can get paired with Phanaphobia, which can be devastating. Granted though, if that obsession has a perk like Prove Thyself, they become a jet jockey like No Tomorrow as well. Because obviously you're going to be focusing on the others who have the penalty, but he's getting all the boosts. And he's also, if he has other perks with healing and stuff, he's just going to be going around like a fucking survivor on cocaine, healing people very quick, and hooking people very quick, giving them BT very quick. It can sometimes lead to a bit of a super survivor, but very, very, very rarely. It's a perk I don't personally take, but it can be paired quite nicely with other perks. So now we come on to Hag. Hag is quite a Special Killer. So, slightly slower, but slightly smaller terror radius. She places glyphs on the ground, and when survivors come so close to a glyph, it will pop and she comes out. And then if you're within a 40-meter range, you look at it and you press a button and you can instantly teleport to it. So she kind of has the ability to teleport where she wants, where you've placed, at a time that you need it, because survivors go there. But you can also adjust these to become blockages for survivors in certain loops. She has to rely on ability a bit more to get the jump because of her base speed. But again, you have to be very careful of speed perks, again, such as live or sprint burst, because she'll have a strong time or a hard time catching up. Now, she comes with 3 pretty solid perks. The first one, the third seal. Hit the survivor a basic attack or a special attack whilst the hex tome is activated applies the blindness effect. So basically, once you've hit someone, they then become blind so they can't hear your terror radius or see your aura. And that applies for the last 4 survivors hit. And that just keeps going. Hex Ruin, which basically means every time survivors come off generators, they start regressing as if you kicked it, but 100% of the normal speed regression. However, this has recently been nerfed, so once any survivor has been killed by any means, the totem or the Hex Ruin automatically expels. So if you're going to use this perk, your best bet is to get everybody onto, or at least 3 people onto second hook first, then start killing off. Because otherwise, if you tunnel really early and they've still got 4 or 2-3 gens left, you've lost this, and then you can lose the game because you've got no way of doing gen regression. If you want the best value of it, you're better off in the long game, and then you want to kill someone right near the end, and then you want to go for your next 2 kills straight off. Then we have Hex Devour Hope, which can be incredibly strong. Every time you hook someone, you have to leave 24 meters. And then when that unhooks, it gains a token. So at 2 tokens, you gain a 5% haste status effect for 10 seconds after hooking survivor for a duration 10 seconds. At 3 tokens, everybody suffers from exposed, which in itself is really strong. And at 5 tokens, you can instantly kill anybody. That is a really, really, really strong ability to instantly kill anybody. However, be warned that as soon as survivors know that you have Hex Devour Hope, so they can tell by the exposed or when you kill someone, they will find it and they will get rid of it. So you have to be careful. It is a high risk, high reward perk. So that's the Hag. The other beauty of the Hag is quite small, so she can be hard to see over certain loops, which you can use to your advantage. Now we move on to the Doctor. The Doctor's main strength is the ability to find people. That's his main strength because of his ability and the fact he can shock people to make them scream. So he basically has 2 main effects. One of them is like a big terror radius aura burst that he can do every once in a while. That makes everybody within it scream, which you use to find people. So if you're on an indoor map, you want to stand in the middle and just send that out. The other one is you hold it for about a second or 2 and he shoots like a cone blast. And as you hit people with these, you cause a madness. So survivors at Madness 1 cause survivors to scream once within their position and slightly affects the skill check placement direction. Madness 2 causes survivors to scream once and experience hallucinations, so they start to see him. And then Madness 3 causes the scream intermittently and experience hallucinations in the form of illusionary doctors, and tremendously affects the skill check placement and direction for survivor cannot heal, repair, sabotage, unlock, cleanse, or use items until they successfully snap out of it. So the Doctor can be very, very, very strong, and you'll tend to find that the Doctor would normally have a perks as distressing to boost the terror radius, and you'll find a lot of people tend to do a build which goes around skill checks, which then makes it with the Madness net very, very hard for survivors to do anything. So he's 4.6, so he's fine at normal chase. He can use his power as well to make people scream or stun them before they do a pallet or a window, so they can't do it and he can hit them, which is also very good. He has a standard larger terror radius. His first perk, survivors within your terror radius suffer from inefficiency, and their item consumption's pulled up. Isn't really used too much because something like Franklin's is better because it removes the item altogether. One for abuse, I feel, is the better Shadowborn. While in chase, your terror radius is increased by 8 meters, which is good for affecting people whilst you're going about. Otherwise, your terror radius is decreased by 8 meters and your field of view goes up by 10 degrees. And an overcharge. So you kick a gen, and then they have a very difficult skill check on it, which if they fail, you lose 5% more. So with the 2.7% you've already done, that's almost 10% you've already taken away if they fail it. And then as it's regressing, the speed of it goes up to 200% over the next 30 seconds, which is very good. This tends to get mixed with a perk called a Brine, which tends to be a good combo. You hit and then both of them start regressing together, and you can get rid of a gem very, very, very quickly. So with the Doctor, your best way to play him is you want to get Madness on people. You want to optimize when you do your Terror Radius Blast to find people. Like again, he is very good at finding sneaky survivors. That is his strength. He doesn't have a chase ability as such, but you can use it for that. And he can be very, very strong if used right. Now we have good old Cannibal. Baba. Baba is a bit of a unique one because it's a bit notorious for camping. And you'll understand why when you see what his ability does. Baba's got 4.6 speed standard, 32 meter radius, which is also a standard larger radius. Knockout, you don't really see this at all. Basically, when you knock someone down, they move slower for so long. Barbecue and chili, after you hook someone, you see everybody else for 4 seconds who are 40 meters plus from the hook. Not best on him, but very good on teleporting killers like Dredge. Can be good on Hag to get an idea of when other seals on the floor are going to pop, and you can teleport over with certain add-ons. Very good on Sadako because she tends to have TVs where survivors more tend to be, and she has a very instant teleport, whereas Dredge's teleport's a bit slower unless it's night time. But obviously Dredge has more options. So it's very good on teleporting killers. Can be good on Freddy as well because you can teleport to the gen. And then he's got Franklin's Demise, which can be very, very strong. So when you hit a survivor, they lose the item, it drops out their hand, and as it sits on the floor, over the next 90 seconds, it loses its charges. His chainsaw is a bit like Hillbillies, but he has a kind of a bit more control with it. So instead of going very fast in a straightish line, he does like sweeps. And the sweeps means you can hit 2-3 survivors at once. So what you often see is people will take down a survivor, they will hook them, and they will sit at the hook. Now the only reason why they'll do this is because of his ability with the chainsaw, he can instantly down people, which when you're camping makes it extremely difficult to get someone off if he does it right. So this can be sort of counteracted, I believe, with off the record, because obviously you could take someone off, they can have off the record, and then put the next person up, but because the other person has endurance, they can take the hit, so they can unhook them, and then they both run away. Bubba's very, very simple. You find people, you either swing at them with your hammer, or you swing at them with your chainsaw to instant down them. That's pretty much all he is. The chainsaw can also be used to very quickly take down pallets. Bubba is a great first starting killer, I think. He's a lot of fun. He's got a lot of fluff to him. A lot of people love him. Just try not be a camping piss face with it. The Nightmare. Freddy. Freddy is a bit of a hybrid killer. So he has normal speed again, slightly large terror radius again. He starts off basically, the Nightmare's terror radius, and people can see him in 16 meters. The minute you see him in 60 meters to 32 meters, and cannot see him beyond that. Because he kind of runs on two things. I kind of get him and I don't. You have survivors that are asleep, and you have survivors that are awake. Then you have clocks on the map, and they use the clocks to wake up. But Freddy can put little round snares on the ground that people run in, which makes them scream, and from what I know, puts them back into sleep. Now, in the dream world, survivors are afflicted with oblivious status effect, and they can be affected by dream snares. Survivors can wake up by failing skill checks, having a wake-up survivor perform the wake-up action, or using alarm clocks they find. Each successful wake-up action takes twice as long. Alarm clocks provide survivors with immunity to sleep for 30 seconds. And awake survivors can hear the terror radius and see him within 16 meters. Immediately see him from 16 meters to 32 meters, but cannot see him beyond that. So it's like, if you're awake, you have some benefits. If you're asleep, you have some benefits. It's like a weird mix. If you place down a dream snare, if they're asleep and they walk over it, they'll be affected by Hindred. And shortly after touching a dream snare. Some of the pallets allow him to have fake pallets. Doctor has that as well. He can have fake pallets. So you summon them out, and then people think they're real, but when they go to use them, they're actually fake. And the other thing he can do is he can look at a generator, and he holds down the button, and in about 5 seconds-ish, he can teleport to that generator, but people see blood coming out of it. So it's a bit easy for people to dodge. Fire up. For each complete generator, you gain a 4% stackable buff. So dropping, vaulting, damaging, and breaking pallets and breaking walls. I don't really use this because the problem you got is you're only benefiting it right in the late game, where you don't really gain benefit anyway because you don't need to end chases so quick because you should have killed a survivor or two. So I personally don't get it. Remember me, each time your session is a health state, you increase the opening time for exit for 4 seconds. This can be mixed with No Way Out and Blood Warden, which can be a very dirty end game combo. You find some people will take Remember Me, No Way Out, Blood Warden, and Node, and that can be an absolute bastard to deal with in end game, but obviously, again, it's high risk, high reward. And then you have Blood Warden. As soon as an exit gate is open and Blood Warden is activated, or as a survivor is located in the exit areas that are revealed to you, once per match, hooking a survivor while Blood Warden is activated causes the entity to block both gates for 60 seconds. This can be devastating. And this perk catches so many survivors off, because what you'll find happens is, if you're playing a game and the killer isn't doing too well, and there's still 4 survivors left or 3 survivors left at the end, they can get overconfident. So they sit in the gates and they want to either flash or teabag or whatever. You then manage to hook one. They then sit in the gate stuck. You just waltz over, you just knock them out, and you just drag them off, and there is fuck all they can do about it. It can seriously be good for overconfident survivors. Outside of that, if people instantly leave, they have a bit more sense and they instantly leave, the perk is basically useless unless you can get the hook very, very, very quickly. That's pretty much Freddy. He's not the strongest killer. He is quite fun to play because of the way he is, and he's a bit more unique. I do play him a little bit, but more because I just love the cool sound he does with the knife fingers. But that's about it. Now we move on to the pig. What's beautiful about the pig is the pig has built-in gem regression. So when we look at gem regression or gem pressure can be done in a number of ways. Gem pressure can be caused by chase. It can be caused by a large terror radius in some cases. It can be caused by having many survivors injured because they have to take time to heal or to run the risk of being downed. Or it can be run in perks. What's nice with the pig is the pig has it built in through head traps. So her premise is quite simple. You find someone, you knock them down, place a head trap on them, and then you hook them. When they come off, once the generator's been done, the head trap activates. Then they have so long to find boxes around the map that they have to go and sit on for so long to try and get a key to take it off. If they don't do it, after so long, the head trap explodes instantly, killing them, and they can't leave the game through the exit gate. They have to try and get through the trap. This can be incredibly strong, especially if you get 2 free traps on survivors near the end game, so none of them can leave yet, even so they can't get trap on the last one or hatch on the last one.
It's very good because it forces survivors to have to do something else or think about something else at the time, which slows everybody right down. You know you can have a survivor run off and you know they're not going to do a lot because they have to get this head trap off, because all the time you're not chasing them, the timer's going. She does have a crouch sneak ability, but if I'm honest, the problem with it is it's too slow and not really warranted. I find you better off just running up there standardly. And she does have like an ambush attack, which you can use in some loots, but it takes a bit of time to get used to. Standard speed, standard slightly larger terror radius. One of the most useless perks in the fucking game, so just ignore this one. Surveillance, also kind of useless. When you kick a generator, if it's interrupted, it highlights for 60 seconds. It's just don't bother. Make your choice can be a very, very, very strong perk though. So when you hook someone, run away 32 meters away. The person who then unhooks them has the exposed status effect for 60 seconds. This can be very, very powerful in Dredge and very, very powerful in Sadako, because what you do is you put someone up, you then teleport away, let them unhook, teleport back, instant down the person that saved them, rinse and repeat. Obviously it has a 60-second cooldown, so be aware of that, but you're going to be able to do it at least 3-4 times I find a match. That's the pig. I think the pig is a very good killer tool to start off with because of the standard speed, getting used to tiles, getting used to survivors. And then it's fun to put the head traps on. You know you can have a little bit more time in a match because you can slow people down just through the head traps alone. The clown. So the clown runs basically on 2 different bottles. One bottle speeds you up, the other bottle slows survivors down. And he can affect these bottles to do different things, such as hallucinate survivors and things like that, or be able to see people through walls. That's basically all his ability is. It's a very easy ability. It's not too hard to aim the bottles. The clown survivor enters a antidote cloud, gain a 10% movement speed for 5 seconds. And intoxicated survivors who enter an antidote cloud are cured, so they do kind of mix around a little bit. He has 3 perks. 2 are very, well, they're all actually fairly decent. Bamboozle basically means if you go over a vault, any kind of window, you block it, only 1. This can be very powerful. I find the best use for this is to go into shack with it. Because if you go into shack with it, unless they got the pallet, in which case they then have to use the pallet and the strongest tile in the game, which means you can shut that down, they have to leave shack. Because the window that they need is gone. They've got no choice. So it's very, very powerful at shutting down shack and shutting down other tiles. So if you have bamboozle, always go into shack through the vault window. Don't go through the doors. Chorophobia. Survivors with a terror radius have a 50% penalty to healing progression speed, and healing checks move 50% faster. This, when you put it with Doctor, can be devastating, and with other perks that affect that. Could be a very, very good perk with a large terror radius. This would probably be a very good perk as well on Wesker because he has a large of 40 meters. So that'd be very, very good on him as well. And then pop goes the weasel. So basically you hook a survivor, you then have so long, 45 seconds to find a gen, you kick it, and then 20% of the total current progress it has is gone. So it's crap on gens that haven't gone very far because obviously they've only done 10 seconds, you're going to get rid of 2 seconds. If it's only done 20 seconds, you're going to get rid of 4 seconds, and so on and so forth. So you kind of want to use it on high done gens to take a big chunk away very quickly, and then obviously it will sit there and regress normally afterwards. It is quite common. I personally don't use it because I find it a little bit too situational. I'd rather be able to hit any gen at any time and then not have the requirement of having to hook someone. Because the problem is if I've got a 3 gen scenario and I have to try and hook 1 or 2 people left, I can't keep doing pop. I think something like Eruption or Call of Brine is better because you're going to put more over time passive regression on, whereas this is more a big hit at once. It tends to get mixed with Pain Resonance as well. But that's basically the clown. Very easy to use, very good to get started with. Now we move on to the spirit. Spirit can be a very, 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 very powerful killer if used right. One of the top 3 in my eyes. She has a smaller terror radius, which is very good for her ability in sneaking up on you. She is a bit slower, but she's still kind of quick enough to get in. But her power more than enough makes up for this. And the key to Spirit is relying on her power. So basically what her power is she'll spend about 2-3 seconds snapping up, and then she enters into like the ethereal realm where she can transverse very, very quickly. She can still hear survivors and see scratch marks, but she can't see the survivors themselves. And then all the survivors can hear is a weird whooshy sound, which kind of gives them a kind of idea of where she is. And then she'll teleport out, and then she'll smack you very quickly, but she has a nice speed boost when she comes out. So basically the key to Spirit is you want to use the power in one of two ways. Use it to make ground to other generators and stuff, or to exit gates, and then constantly use it in chase, and you want to mind game with it. The other good thing she can do is, if you're at a pallet, just stand still. Because if you stand still, you can mind game other survivors into believing that you're in the ethereal plane when you're not. And you'll find sometimes the longer you wait, the better it is, because if you really stand still for a long time, even more educated survivors or higher skill players will start thinking, hang on, you've been still for like 8 seconds, what the fuck's going on? You must be phasing, or I can't hear it or something. So then they'll move anyway. So you can still use it if you're very, very patient and want to be a bit more risky with higher end survivors, but don't always rely on it. She does take a long time to get used to, a bit like Nurse. She is a little bit more flexible than Nurse is, because you get much more time with your ability to go around, but still be careful of pallets. She can be very good with bamboozle as well, because you can go into a tile, go over a window, bamboozle it, shut it off, then you kind of shut either half or most of the tile off, then use her ability to make the rest up. Spirit Fury is very good. Basically, if you break 2 pallets, next time you hit with one, you instantly break it. That can be very, very good with her as well, because you'll find people often try and pallet spam her with her ability. Haunted Grounds can be stupidly powerful if done at the right time. I've won games just because of this. Basically, 2 Hex Totems will spawn. If survivors break one of them, then for 60 seconds everybody is exposed, which in the right time is absolutely huge and is very good on her, because she has the ability to go on people and hit them straight away very quickly. Also very good on Sadako, very good on Dredge as well, very good on Nurse, very good on Huntress, very good on Blight. Trying to think who else. Yeah, very good on them. Probably a couple of others as well. Rancor is can be a double-edged sword. So every time a generator is completed, the obsession sees your aura for 3 seconds, but you can see everybody else's location for 3 seconds as well. Very good to find where people are when a gen's being done quick. And it's also very good to then, once all of them are done, you can instantly down the survivor, that is the obsession, you can kill them. The only time this perk gets a bit worse is obviously if you're in a Swift, he can tell other people where you are because he can see you, and then they will make sure that you don't get him in the end game. And the second thing is, if you kill him early, the perk's kind of wasted. But the Spirit is very, very, very strong, and she comes with some of the best cosmetics in the game. Legion. Standard speed again, slightly larger terror radius. So basically, Legion's main ability is as they enter like a dash, they can vault over pallets and they can vault over windows as quick as survivors, basically. And then he hits you, which makes you have a deep wound. And then he goes and chases the next person because he can see him within range. And hits them and he keeps chaining them. And then on the last one, he can instantly down you. That's basically the crux of his ability and what he relies on. He's very good at dealing out damage very, very quickly, which is why a lot of people mix Phenophobia with him. The only problem you have with the ability is if you miss, you'll come out of it, and you got the slowdown isn't so bad now. That's his main ability. So he is good in chase because of ability, but you need to 9 times out of 10 do the normal hit normal way afterwards with an M1 instead of an M2. And yeah, he'll give you the deep wound stat for each one he does. He has Discoordinates, which these days is a very, very good perk, which basically means any generator being worked on by 2 or more survivors shows up, so you know where to go. So see that with him, activate his or her ability, and run down there. Mad Grit is very good against Sabo squads because you have a chance to hit them and chain those hits to then carry Survivor a lot further. Mixes with Agitation, which is really good, and if you want to mix even further with Starstruck, you can. Just remember, Starstruck tends to make people want to leave because they see they're exposed. And then Iron Maiden, which basically means survivors that enter lockers and come out are exposed to 30 seconds. This pairs quite nicely with Huntress, because obviously Huntress needs to go into lockers a lot, the same as Mr. Korean Man. Fuck. Trickster. He has to go in to get his knives all the time. Very simple to use killer, very simple ability, great one again to get started with, not too much to manage. The Plague. Plague's biggest strength is to the ability to shut off the healing meta. So Plague basically, what happens is when you start off as Plague, you'll have your normal movement speed, your slightly large terror radius, and your tall. Be aware that her height makes her very easy to guess what she's doing at tiles and in chase, because you can see her over everything, because she's such a big mama. So what happens is basically on every map so many fountains will spawn, and one of them will already have a corrupt purge on it and the rest will be water. So basically the principle is you throw up on survivors to make them sick. They then get rid of the sickness by going to the fountains, turn them into corrupt ones, and then you use the corrupt ones to down survivors by basically eating the corrupt water, and then your vomit instead damages survivors instead of just makes them sick. However, what's nice with her is Vile Purge. When you make people sick enough, and you can also throw up on objects to, when I work with certain objects like pallets or gens and that, they become more sick. They get the broken status effect. And the broken status effect is very nice against healing because it slows it right down. So against strong healing meta, she is king in my eyes because she has the instant ability to slow it down. It's not hard to get people sick because she can vomit over lots of stuff. And she also has a nice range ability when she has a corrupt purge, and she can use that to damage multiple survivors very quickly. And she can be very difficult as well if she has corrupt purge on hook saves because she can hit multiple survivors at once. She has corrupt intervention, which basically means the furthest 3 generators are instantly blocked, which buys you a lot of time at the beginning. However, once you down a survivor, it will instantly end, which is where you have to be careful. It used to not have that requirement, which made it a lot stronger, but obviously it also made it very boring for survivors because basically for the first 120 seconds they were a little bit stuck, or they had to really flan out. It can still be good at early game just to stop that first 3 gen going off, especially if they've taken an add-on to be 2, 3 or 4 starting together. But I personally don't take it much anymore. I think there's other perks now that have more utility in the long run, especially as soon as you put someone in the dying state, it ends this perk very, very quickly. It might only last 30 seconds for you. She has Infectious Fright. Any survivors that are in your terror radius while any survivors put in the dying state will yell. You don't really see it. It's not really worth it. There's other perks better for it. For instance, the new perk with Wesker, where you pick someone up, you can see everybody around you, is infinitely better than this in many ways because you get it all the time. And as soon as that survivor screams, they're just going to run off anyway. Dark Devotion can be fun. You become obsessed with one survivor. When the obsession loses a health state, your terror radius is transferred to them, which obviously means you're undetectable. And the survivor with the transfer radius is also considered to be inside the terror radius. This could be very good with things, I believe you can use this with Starstruck. I haven't tried it yet, but if you could hit someone, pick someone up, and then the Starstruck will start going around the map as the survivor's running around, which can be hilarious. It can also be very good because obviously if you have other perks that affect skill checks and stuff like that, when the survivor's running around, it's affecting your teammates on the other ends of the map. So there are good uses for Dark Devotion. It can just be a bit asystematic, but it can lead to some interesting playthroughs. So that's the play. She's a little bit harder to use. She takes a little bit more management, a bit more of a mindset to get around. But I would say when she's a little bit more comfortable, she's a great one to use. Ghosty. Ghosty is a bit like the Shape, Michael Myers, in that he stalks people, makes them exposed, and then hits them. So he has normal movement speed, normal large terror radius. He can crouch down and hide, which can be more ability great than people think. His best ability in the game is the fact that he can teabag, so you can finally teabag back at survivors that teabag you. So his ability is very simple, really. You basically crouch down and hide. You then use that to stalk people to bring a meter up. When that meter's maxed out, they're exposed, you hunt them down and hit them. However, if other survivors look at you, apart from the one you're stalking at the time, they will expose you or make you come out of your ability so you can't do it anymore, and you have to wait. That's basically what it is. So he's hide and seek. You hide, you find someone, you stalk them, expose them, run, kill them, rinse, repeat. I'm all ears. Any survivor performing a rest action with 48 meters of location will have their aura revealed for 6 seconds. This can be very good, especially with things like Shack and that into Mind Game, but it's not the strongest perk in the world. Thrilling Tremors. After a survivor, all generators not being repaired by survivors are blocked by the entity and cannot be repaired for the next 16 seconds. Affected generators are highlighted in the right aura. What's good about this perk isn't the fact that it blocks gens. It's more the information it gives you, right? So you got to think about it this way. When you pick someone up and you hook them, all the gens that are then blocked, are not being worked on or have some progress on them. You then know what gens are being worked on right now, so you know where to go next. That's the beauty of the perk. It's not the fact it stops them, it's the fact that it gives you information as to where to go. Fugitive Chase. You become obsessed with one survivor, you lurk in the shadows, eliminating your victims one by one. Your obsession is hooked. Fugitive Chase receives a token up to 4. Each decreases your terror radius by 4 meters while in chase. When a survivor rescues the obsession from a hook, the rescuer becomes the obsession. There could be uses for this. The only problem is the requirement of while in chase, which is kind of what makes it more difficult to use. If this didn't have that requirement and it worked outside the chase, it could be very good for sneaky killers, but I wouldn't really bother about it too much. Now we have Demodog. Demodog is kind of like a hag in a way, so he has 2 main abilities. He can pull his arms out and he charges up, and he can lunge, which is very good for anti-loops, and he can put down little holes in the ground in the upside down, and he uses them to teleport around the map, so you can kind of choose where you want to teleport to. But when you teleport, they're shut down for a bit, and survivors can also sabotage them so they don't use. He has a 4.6 terror radius, 4.6 meter speed, 32 meter terror radius, and he's tall. And again, we've already gone through his abilities. His perks got taken away and made base kit because of the licensing agreement. But if I remember, he has Jolt, which basically means every time you down a survivor, all generators within a certain radius lose a bit of progress, which I think is a very, very good perk. He has another one that when the generator is activated, he then shuts off all windows around it. I don't know what his other one is. Let's see if I can find it quick. Yeah, that's claustrophobia. All window and vault locations are done for the next 30 seconds. There's Jolt, which is one of them. So 8% of progress within 32 meters. Very, very good perk. I don't always have a perk, but he has one more perk. So you don't have to worry about unlocking them because they all got made base kit. Demogorgon is can be quite a strong killer. I mean, especially with the add-ons that lets you see people when you transverse, can be very, very, very powerful. He is good at loops because of the shed ability. You just got to learn when to use it and hope survivors don't bait you with it. Other than that, he is a half decent mid-range tier killer. He isn't too hard to use. I would use him once you're a little bit more comfortable. Yeah, he's quite fun. The Oni. Oni can be an incredibly strong killer when used right, and a very, very underrated killer in my books. So Oni has standard walk, standard larger terror radius. Tall is obviously humongous. He's easy as fuck to see over certain tiles and things. His perks are basically crap. The first one is auras of breakable walls, vault locations. There's no fucking point. When you hook a survivor, all injured survivors suffer from a hemorrhage and exhaustion stat effect. Used to be very good because it was one of the only counters to the old dead hard, but it's really not needed anymore. And then he has a survivor who blinds your stun using a pallet or locker becomes your obsession. Anytime a new survivor comes to the obsession, they affect with the oblivious status effect. Basically not worth it. It's really not. Hopefully these will get reworked shortly. But what is fucking good is his ability. So basically, when he hits you and you start bleeding, you'll leave blood orbs around. And he eats these blood boards up, these blood orbs, to charge up his ability. And then when he's charged it up, he enters into a blood fury mode. He goes all possessed like a demon. And then he can charge with his big club and he can instantly down survivors. He is quick. He is quite good at control when he does this. He can also get rid of pallets very quickly with it. And he can instantly down you, which can make him very, very scary in the right hands. Very, very, very scary. What's also nice is his ability to see blood orbs could also make him a very, very good tracker. Because he hasn't got to look at the floor to see him. He'll just see him about and he can track you with them, which makes him very good. Very underrated killer in my books. And I've seen some insane people who are high skilled with Oni and they do some incredible things with him. Absolutely incredible. Some of his perks are also very good. You can hit the floor and make people scream, so he can find you even more. If I was to play him, personally, I would put Hemorrhage on him. It's a sloppy butcher. I would put Jolt on him, because you're going to instant down survivors very quickly. I would put Eruption on him, because again, you're going to instant down survivors very quickly, and you've got the time to go and kick gens. And then I'll probably put an end game thing like No Way Out on him, because again, you have the time and the speed to run to the hook and instant down survivors. That's the sort of builds that I would go for on Oni. Very, very rewarding when you learn him. The Death Slinger. One of the few range killers in the game, and apparently a fucking leprechaun. He's a bit slower because obviously he's a range killer. Standard larger terror radius. So basically he has a gun, if you can't tell. He points, he shoots, hits you with a hook. You wheel him in. Once you've wheeled him enough, you then stab him with the harpoon blade on the end. Or if you pull it long enough, they'll break the chain and that will hurt the survivors anyway. Very simple killer. Very easy to use. Got to get used to the range because the range is infinite on his chain, and you've got to get used to the shooting because there is sort of art to it. You don't get like a lot of weapon sway like a lot of first-person shooter games. He can be very, very, very good on the right hand, especially when you can start sniping through tiny little gaps like a bastard and shooting, say, Steve's ankle, and you can do some gay shit like that. Very, very good killer in the right hands. However, outside of that, he is very weak. He prefers open maps. Indoor maps, he will more struggle. You're very slow whilst aiming, and obviously survivors can very easily dodge it. Gearhead. While Gearhead's activated, each time a survivor completes a great skill check while parrying, that aura is revealed to you for 10 seconds. I have seen some use for this, but it's not the best because of the requirement it requires. Deadman Switch used to be a very strong perk, used to get mixed with Scourge Pain Resonance a lot. Whenever Deadman Switch activates for the next 30 seconds, whenever survivors stop working on a gen, that gen is blocked for the remainder of that time. Unfortunately, 30 seconds isn't a lot of time, which is why I don't tend to use it. And then Hex Retribution. Any survivor interacts with a Dull Titan or a Hex Titan will suffer the Oblivious status effect for 45 seconds. The Hex Titan is removed, including this one. Auras of all survivors are revealed for 15 seconds. That can be very, 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 very strong. Very strong. Especially on totem-hungry survivors or on witches. Because they tend to go and do a lot of boons themselves or a lot of totems. It can be mixed very nicely with a Hex Haunted Ground, because obviously they'll do it. And then suddenly you'll see everybody if they've also done this. And then, so it's down there is exposed, you can find them all, chase them down, smack, done. I've actually used this combo once to win a whole game. It was just ridiculous. I was Spirit, I took this, I took Hex Haunted Ground, took two other, no, it was a Sadako. I think I was Sadako. So, scenario, you're Sadako, right? I had a perk which may be non-detectable, Trail of Torment. I then had this perk and I had Haunted Ground. People did Haunted Ground, I saw really survivors, I teleported around, smacked the first person, teleported to the next TV, smacked the next person, teleported to the next one, smacked the next person, then ran out, but because I had Lethal Pursuer, I had a few more seconds, saw the last one, then hit them, it was game over. No unbreakables, done. It can be a ridiculous combo if done right. But that's Death Slinger. Point, shoot, chase, happy days. I think he's actually quite fair to get started with, if I'm honest. Pyramid Head. Pyramid Head has one of the best abilities in the game because he can shut down so much. So basically, he has a big fuck off sword that you can do 2 things with. Or 3 things with, in a way. He can smack you with it, just standardly. He can put it into the ground, which leaves a giant trail behind him of barbed wire. And then he can also then swing it so it brings out a trail of like iron which then hits people, which you can use to go through walls, snipe people. There is a rule with it. I think you can go downstairs with it, but not upstairs with it. And yeah, so he can counter loops with it. You can counter shack with it. If you then down a survivor and they've walked over the trail, which has made them damned, you can then, instead of hooking them, you put your sword on the ground and you send them to a cage somewhere across the map, which then means you instantly hook, which means he can avoid DS, he can avoid flashlight saves, he can avoid boil over spam, he can avoid corner map spam, he can avoid library and RPD, he can avoid body blocking, he can avoid sabo squads. If you play him right, he is superly powerful. And I do believe his power also means that when the people unhook him out of cages, they don't get their BT and they don't get their off the record. Very, very, very powerful killer. And he is normal speed as well, which is super nice. The range of his punishment at the damned isn't the longest, but you get used to that. But you can make it longer with add-ons, which can make it super, super good, especially on long tiles. You can use it as well when people vault, which is also very good. So through pallets and through windows is the main place you tend to use it. I like to personally use him more. I want to get very good at Pyramid. He can be a very, very, very strong killer. He just has the ability just to instantly down someone as well. So if someone's on 3rd hook and they're done, you swing your sword down, instantly take them out, no worry to hooks. Because of that, you want to be a bit mindful with Pyramid Head about taking Scourge hook perks, because you won't always be hooking. So you're better off using more perks that affect things such as make him undetectable is very good for him, especially with his ability. And you also want to use a lot more gem regression perks with him, I find, or explosion effects, or aura effects. Don't worry about Scourge hook ones, because they're saying a lot of the time you're going to put people through the trail, then you're going to cage them, so you're never going to get the use of it. So when Survivor takes protection hit effect of the broken status, that can be good against Swifts, because Swifts tend to be very body blocky. So that can be very good against them in the long run. Trail Torment, I think, is a very underrated perk. Once you've done it, it's going to be very good on Bubba as well, because you can sneak up with chainsaws and get instant downs of it. After damage generator become undetectable, generator stops until the generator stops regressing or survivor is injured or put into the dying state. And then you've got Deathbound. Any survivor that heals another survivor for 1 health state at least 32 minutes away from the killer. So performing the healing action will scream within an allocation, which can be handy, and will give him Deathbound for the next 60 seconds. If I remember right, bear with me. Effects with Torment. So yeah, you'll afflict him with Deathbound instead. Yeah. During that time, the survivor will suffer a bit of status effect when further than 8 meters away from the healed survivor. That does actually have some uses, especially on teleport killers, because someone can scream, you can teleport over to where they are. As soon as they start running away, they don't know you're there, and then you can snipe them out. It's not the strongest perk again, but it can be really handy. Very, very, very good killer in my book. Very good. Very underrated Pyramid Head. Blight, again, normally put in the top 3. I'm personally shocking with Blight. I don't really use him. But basically, he's like a giant English dodgem. He runs around, bounces off walls, bounces around tiles like a fucking pinball ball, knocks survivors down, stabs himself with some more drugs, rinse and repeats. What makes him good is the speed that he has. He has speed to get across the map of what he does, and he has speed to shut down chases quickly. However, survivors that mind game him well, he might have a hard time again, who vault a lot, use pallets a lot. He does have add-ons, that means he can instantly break pallets, which is making them ridiculous. and he then becomes basically the strongest killer in the game next door to Nurse. Again, normal movement speed. I personally don't think he should have normal speed. I think it should be nerfed to 4.4 in my opinion, because he has the ability anyway. Doesn't make sense to me that his stays 4.6 but Spirit's got nerfed to 4.4 when they both have like a similar ability, the ability to move fast and be anti-loop. Dragon's Grip can be a hilarious perk if used right. So basically you kick a gen, if someone then works on it, they scream and they become exposed for 60 seconds, but it has a huge cooldown unfortunately. Blood Fever can be a very strong perk in the right hand. I did a very good hag game where this became clutch. So whenever you hurt someone, they block all the pallets within a 32 immediate radius range. The only problem you have to be aware of this is if you have a pallet hit trade-off, i.e. you hit a survivor just as they bring the pallet down, so you've still injured them but the pallet's still gone down, because then the pallet's gone down, you've got to break it and then you've got to move and you've still got a lot of time, so it won't get you around that. So you want to make sure you're always hitting just before pallets, or so you get the most use for it. It can be very good in Jigsaw's map as well. Hex Undying. So basically, a survivor within 4 meters of a double totem have their aura revealed, which is also very good. When one of your totem perks is destroyed, it gets transferred to this one, or if this one's destroyed, the other one's left. So it's kind of like a dummy or a second chance Hex totem. So Blight, I would definitely say, is for much more experienced players, just like Nurses. And again, he's very good, but he wants very quick chases again. He's just basically a human ping pong ball. That is what he is. Then we move on to Twins. Twins can also be good in the right hands. So, standard movement, standard base terror radius. Charlotte is just a standard M1 killer. She just chases you and smacks you. However, it is her brother Victor that's a unique bit. So basically, at any point, you can unleash the baby. And the baby runs around very quickly as a demonic little shit. And then he can pounce on survivors. And as he's pounced on them, he injures them and they've got to get him off. And as they're running around, people within so much of Victor have their presence shown with killer instinct. This can make finding survivors very, very, very quickly. Also, people that are hit with him are also broken and incapacitated, which is also very powerful, as well as oblivious, which means basically they can't do anything until they get him off. The key to using Twins is, I find you want to make most use of Victor. So you want to use him before people get to the exit gates so they can't do it. You want to use him on people on gens to stop them and then chase after him with Charlotte. It's like a two-hit pony. Fine with Victor, grab hold of him, Charlotte then hunts him down and does the rest. Rinse, repeat. It's basically the way he works. But don't forget, the other nice thing you can do with Victor is you can put him somewhere on the map. You can like hide him around a corner or something. And then he can show the killer instinct to people that come close. So you can like camp him on a gen or something like that. Just be warned that survivors can kick him and kill him, but he doesn't take too long to respawn. Oh, and her perks. Hoarder, don't worry about it. Obsession, don't worry about it. But I am curious if this stacks with other gem regression perks. Coup de Grace can be a strong one. My only gripe with Coup de Grace is you only get 5 times. But basically you get an insanely long lunge on an attack, on a basic attack. The Trickster. So the Trickster is basically a worse Huntress. So instead of having axes he throws loads of daggers. He has to hit you so many times with the daggers to get you kind of like semi-exposed in a way, and then when he hits you one more time, you then go into the dying state or you go into the injured state, whichever one you're in. And then as he throws them, they get more and more accurate. And then if he throws enough and it's full, he can hit the main event where he basically spams a fuck ton until he reaches 0. The only problem with the blades is they're inconsistent, they're inaccurate, and they're just difficult to use. He's a bit slower, which hurts, and he's got a slightly smaller terror radius, which also hurts him in a way, because he's kind of a killer you do want to use the bigger terror radius on, especially as he's got Starstruck built in as his standard perk. And you want to use him, with my mind, a lot of skill check perks, because he needs that kind of slowdown difficulty with the blades that he does. Starstruck, very powerful perk. When you pick someone up, anybody within your terror radius suffers the exposed status effect for 30 seconds. Very, very, very strong. Very good at crowd control, i.e. survivors hoarding around you to try and stop you hooking. Instant deterrent for them, that's why I love it. Crowd control, the entity blocks a window for 20 seconds after survivor forms a rush vault for it. Can be a good perk. My only problem with it is bamboozle you have more control over because you get to choose the window you go over. And you can't shut bamboozle off. Whereas Hex crowd control, they can destroy it. But obviously Hex crowd control, I believe, will do more than one vault at one time. So if they do a whole building in 20 seconds, it's all shut off. And then No Way Out, which can be a very, very strong endgame perk. So every time you hook someone, you gain a token. And then that adds up to another 12 seconds on the 12 seconds you had. And when they go to touch the exit gate switch, it shuts both off. Then they have to wait a long time, and then you have time to hunt people down, but also you know which exit gate they're at. Again, very good on teleporting killers. Trickster isn't really the hardest to use. He's kind of a point and click, but he just gets frustrating because his ability isn't the strongest. But he is actually probably a good guy to start off with because his ability is just so easy. You just point and you just swing. And then you're hoping more on quantity than quality of throws with him, because of the inaccuracy. Now we come to Nemesis. Nemesis is very tall, which you have to be aware of. You can see him running a mile away, and he's very loud. And he's very easy to work out what he's doing in loops. Standard movement, standard larger terror radius, and then he has his whip. His whip is very good. Now, the key to using his whip is you don't just whip it down in a straight line. You have to whip and drag it slightly. So you get a slight, small cone-ish area of effect, which makes it better. You can whip over certain obstacles and over certain like walls and things. Keep that in mind. When he first has his whip out, it's very slow and it doesn't do a lot. But as you hit healthy survivors, you'll gain a big chunk of boost and eventually you get to tier 2 and tier 3. Which basically means then you can knock down walls very quickly, you can knock down tiles very quickly, and it becomes a lot more powerful and a lot quicker, and you get a bit more range. Or he just punches you in the head with a big fucking fist. When you hit someone, they then become contaminated with the T-virus. I believe it is the T-virus for him. They just become contaminated with a virus. And then they've got two choices. They either have to go and find a catch to then inject themselves with a vaccine to cure it, or they have to live with it. If they're infected, if they're then hit by your whip again, or by two zombies that walk around the map, it will then wound them to either put them in the dying state or the injured state, which is why it's important for them. It's kind of like a semi-exposed kind of thing. So if you whip them and they're healthy, you'll only infect them, you won't actually hurt them. But once they're infected, you'll hurt them every time you whip them or a zombie hits them. So the thing you have to be careful with Nemesis when starting out is, in a way, he kind of has to hit you 3 times. Because he has to whip you once to infect you, and then 2 more times to actually down you. So don't be scared to punch survivors when you get the opportunity to. You can always use the whip when you have to at longer range. You more want to use the whip at windows when you're not going to get the M1 punch, or at pallets and things like that. That's when I would whip. Always take the M1 when you can get it, because you're guaranteed to then put them in a state, which can be stronger in the long run than just putting a vaccine in. His 3 perks are Lethal Pursuer, very, very good, because every time you start a trial, you see everybody, which already gives you a map out, so you know where your gens are, where your survivors are, and sort of where they're going. And then any other aura is shown, it's then boosted by 2 seconds. So perks like Barbecue and Chili benefit from this. I'm All Ears benefit from this. You name it. If it shows their actual aura, their outline, not Killer Instinct, their actual outlines, you can see them themselves, it's boosted by 2 seconds, which is very, very good. Floods of Rage is also brilliant with this. Hysteria. When a healthy survivor becomes injured by any means, all injured survivors suffer from Oblivious. This can be good when mixed up with other Oblivious perks. And I have seen some people do builds around this, so you constantly can't see where survivors are, you constantly can't see where the killer is, and you constantly can't hear him. Can get very scary, especially with teleporting killers. Eruption, which in my mind is one of the best regression perks in the game now. So you hit a generator, up to many as you want. When you then injure someone, all the generators you smack lose 10% worth of progress, which will be not total progress like Pop Goes the Weasel, it is just a solid 10%. And any survivors that are repairing at the time will scream and be incapacitated for 25 seconds, which means if 2 or 3 survivors are working on them and you do it, they can't do shit for 25 seconds, which is superb. This perk in a 3-gen endgame, which means you have 3 gens all closely together in one corner or whatever the map, with this can be brutal. Absolutely brutal. Because survivors have a hard time getting around it, because you keep kicking all the gens, and then every time you down someone for 25 seconds, they're out and you're regressing. Very, very, very good perk. Nemesis, I would say, use him when you're a little bit more equated with the main game, but not too much. So I'd say once you're comfortable, like 5 to 10 games in, go for him. He's not the hardest killer to use. He's very versatile, and he does what he does best, which is punching people in the head. Pinhead. Pinhead is a little bit more complex and a little bit more subjugated to RND. Basically, Pinhead has a cube, the box, and the box is put down somewhere, and survivors can find it, the layman configuration, and they can start working it out, which doesn't take too long. And whilst they're working it out, you can teleport to them, in which case he does his awesome voice lines and you can chase them down. If left alone, layman configuration initiates a chain hunt by summoning chains to pursuing survivors. So basically, each survivor has like a little chain gauge that goes around, and when that's maxed out, chains start coming out, which slows them right down, which can be very, very good for chase. Or they have to solve the box to slow that down. If you get hold of the box, it's all the better for you because it speeds everything up. The other problem you have with him is he has an ability to summon a single hook. So he shoots his beam out and it goes a certain range of how you're looking. And from there you can shoot a hook out further. My only problem with the hook thing is a lot of time I think, can I just gain the distance that I done hooking you with it and then chasing you just by standardly chasing you without bothering anyway? Because the problem is when you're charging up and using it, he stands still. So I personally don't use his chain thing. I just do a normal hunt, but then let the box, I work around the box to do the rest of the slowdown for me. I think that's better because it's passive. He is tall, so he's easy to read. 4.6, 3.2. He has deadlock, which can be very good. So every time a generator is done, the one with the most progress locks for 30 seconds. The only time this becomes useless is if there's 2 gens, say one at 69 and one at 70. It's going to lock down the 70% one, but the one at 69 is still very far done, so it's going to get worked on anyway. So there are workarounds to deadlock, so don't rely on it. Plaything. First time you hook survivor, they become cursed, and Hex Plaything activates on a dull totem. Cursed survivor suffers from the Oblivious status effect. Again, can be very good. I personally don't use it myself because it's Hex, and Hex is very easy to counter. And then you have Gift of Pain. So when you hook someone on the scourge trip, once they're taken off, they're hemorrhaged and mangled, and the first survivor to heal that survivor, let's have a 60% penalty to it. Can be very good at keeping the survivor down. It can be very good at tunneling the survivor because it's harder to heal them, and it takes a longer time. Now we move on to the artist. The artist is again a bit of a hybrid killer because she does move at the 3.6. But she kind of does also have a range ability. So basically you can summon up to 3 crows pointing in directions. You don't have to do them all at once. You can walk a little bit and they'll stay there for a little bit. You've got so long to then launch them. When you launch them, they go in a straight line for a very, very long distance. And then if they hit a survivor, it puts crows around them, which basically means you can find where they are. Dire crows can also inflict damage for a short distance when flying. This is declared by the crow's flight path. So if you do it very close, and also if they've got the birds on, you can actually injure people, which is very, very good. That's basically our main ability. So what she's good at is finding where survivors are camping. I.e., your best bet at using this ability is you launch it at gens. So you'll go, right, well, start off the game, go, where are my 3 furthest gen? 1, 2, 3. Shoot them, you'll then work out who's working on it. And then you want to then use the crows in tight loops to shut them down by putting the crows on people to then injure them, or vice versa, or just cause them a panic to know where they are. Hit them, hook them, done. So she hasn't got a lot of management. I think she's actually an easy killer to use near the first few games because she isn't the hardest to use and it gives you an idea of shutting down tiles. Grim Embrace. Each time a survivor is hit for the first time, you gain a token. Upon reaching 4 tokens, Grim Embrace activates. The entity blocks all gens for 40 seconds. Can be strong. Can be strong near the end a bit, but the problem is it's just not hard for survivors just to hide for 40 seconds. That's the problem, because obviously if all the gens are blocked, the survivors are then just going to hide somewhere. There's no point in you shooting crows at the gens because they're not hiding near them anymore because they're all blocked, so it's a bit useless. Pain Resonance got nerfed, but still very good. Anytime a survivor is hooked on the Scourge hook, the generator with the most progression explodes, instantly losing 15%. The survivors only don't scream anymore, but they still lose the 15%. So it is good to mix this with, say, Pop, or to mix it with, say, Dead Man's Switch, because you can take the progress off, go to that one because it does still highlight, get them off it, and then you'll see more because you'll shoot the birds at it. And you know it's not being worked on for the next so many seconds. Or you can mix it with other gen regression like, say, Eruption or Call of Brine. Hex Pentimento. Basically, every time a totem is destroyed, you can then go and light it up, and with each one you're lighting up, you gain benefits. So decrease survivors' repair speeds for 30%, decrease survivors' healing speeds for 30%, recovery speed for 30%, exit gate for 30%, and then all totems blocked at 5, which can make it very strong. What's nice about this perk isn't always the fact that it's putting the percentages on, it's the fact it's slowing survivors down, i.e. they keep going back to take out the relit totems. That's what's nice about it. They've got to spend another so many seconds taking it down again. You go and light it up. They've got to spend another load of seconds taking it back down. You go again, you light it back up. So it's the time you can buy by keeping survivors busy that's very good. Sadako, my personal favourite. Sadako gets a lot of hate and I don't know why. She in the right hands can actually be perfectly fine. Although a lot of people for some reason want to brand her as one of the weakest killers. Sadako is 4.6, which is brilliant. And she is the only short killer, which is good because she's so short, she's very good at mind gaming survivors. 24 meters, which makes her very good at sneaking up. So her main ability is she has a few different things. So she can be manifested or demanifested. When she's demanifested, she's undetectable. And then she can use that to sneak up on survivors very quickly. And she's like a weird glitchy ghost in the background. You can also use that in chase. So I've done it a few times. If say you're at a pallet with only a few barrels around it, sit on one side parallel to the pallet. Then what you do is you unmanifest, and as you unmanifest, you glitch, which makes it then harder for survivors to see which way you're coming from. You use it to get the hit. So you can do small mind games with it. It's a lot better if you put the add-on on to make it like 2 seconds longer. Makes it so much better. She has TVs around the map, which are normally placed near gens, normally. And she can instantly teleport to those when she's demanifested, coming straight out. And she has a small beast burst. And anybody within a certain range of that TV then gains condemned. If they gain 7 condemned, they then basically are fully condemned. And you can hunt them down and then you can instantly kill them regardless of hook states, which is incredibly strong. So one of the new builds that people are doing is they're giving everybody videotapes at the start. They're harassing one person till they're fully condemned, killing them straight out the game, and then going with 3 when there's only 4 gens left. So it's kind of like a condemned tunneling in a way. She isn't the strongest in chase because she hasn't got a specific chase power, so you have to rely on being very strong at mind games with her. But again, her height does help her with this. But the biggest problem with Sadako is survivors can shut her power down very quickly. They've only got to pull the tape out the TV, and yeah, they gained a bit of condemned for it, big whoop, and there's another TV they've got to get it into. And then instantly her TV shut down, she can't teleport, which completely wrecks her ability, and that's the big problem with Sadako. You've got to work around. You have to be ready to take a few punches in yourself and your ability to gain a bit. They do have to run that to then another TV, and when they put it in, they lose a lot of condemned very quick. Her 3 main perks are Floods of Rage is very good. Hook someone a Scourge Hook. It's the opposite of Barbecue in Chile. When they're taken off, you see everybody for 7 seconds. Lethal Pursuer, that goes up to 9 seconds. 8 seconds. No, 9 seconds, yes. Which is very, very good. Call of Brian, which I use a lot because it's one of the few reliable gen regression perks now. So you smack a gen, 200% it regresses by. Every time then people do skill checks on it, you'll know because it tells you. And then you've got Merciless Storm. When you reach 90%, they have to go through a spinny wheel of many checks. If they fuck it up, it blocks the gen for 20 seconds, but only once on each generator, which is the small problem with it. But that can be very, very powerful when you mix it with other skill check perks, which make it near impossible to do. I wouldn't use Sadako straight off the bat because you want to be much stronger at loops. You want to be much stronger at chases to get the most of her. You got to use her power all the time. The TV recharge is very slow, which is what makes it hard. And you can't always rely on her to leave injured survivors because if they start healing, she'll have a very hard time. You very much need to chase someone, put them down, and hook them straight away. That's my only advice for Sadako. The Dredge is kind of like Sadako, but a bit more buffed in my eyes. Because he has the same ability as Sadako, but it can't be shut down. He doesn't have the Condemned, but instead he can leave a husk which gives him an anti-loop. And he can put survivors in nighttime, which makes it hard for them to see, better for him to chase, and gives him undetectable. So in my mind, he is a stronger Sadako. I just prefer Sadako thematically. So basically, when you start the match, you spawn out and you wait for a timer to come up. When that timer's full, you can teleport to a locker and you can shift between 3 lockers at a time and you can see out of the locker. Survivors can lock lockers, which makes it longer for you to come out of, which does actually have a big effect, but once you've broken that lock, that's it, the lock's gone for good, so it's worth getting through it. When he hits people, he then speeds up what we call a nightfall leader. So when he hits people and hooks them, it speeds up. When it's full, everything enters darkness, which is actually quite hard to make survivors see, especially on indoor maps. It can be a good thing, but not too much that it's ridiculous. And then you can see survivors a lot easier because they come a white outline. And then your ability recharges a lot quicker, and you move a lot quicker, and as well as your husk. The other ability he does is he leaves a husk somewhere on a loop, and you can move about, and then you can teleport back to that husk at any point to hit people. But if survivors walk into it, it destroys it. It can also be good that with the husk, you can hook someone, hide around the corner, leave your husk there, start walking away till you find someone else. But if you don't find them and they unhook someone, you teleport straight back and you hit that person. So he's a very, very strong teleporty killer. He's got normal speed, which he really needs. He's got the normal larger terror rages, which is very good for him. Disillusion's a bit weak because the problem is it activates 3 seconds after injuring someone. It'd be better if it was instant or whilst they were injured and you were in their terror radius. Darkness Revealed, you open the locker, reveals everybody who is close to the locker. Can be very strong in him, and also very strong in Huntress, because you can see where people are and snipe them out. And then Septic Touch basically means if you're healing and you're within his terror radius and you stop and you leave, you're then blinded and exhausted. It's very good for nerfing things like Dead Hard. But again, not the strongest perk. Dredge is a bit harder to use because you need to get used to getting your head around doing loops with his shadow husk thing and teleporting. He's also disgusting. And you've got to get used to teleporting around to find people again. So if we kind of group these killers now into main groups, Dredge, Sadako, in a way, Freddy are teleporting killers, so they can traverse the map very quickly. It's very much what they're good at, and they want to end chases quickly, not because of their ability, but because they haven't really got strong chase power minus Dredge in a way. Pinhead tends to like the longer game and needs to run around his box. Artist, Trickster, Deathslinger, Pyramid Head, Plague, and Huntress are all ranged killers. She has her axes, he has his knives, he has his big blade that he can put across the ground, she has her bird. So they like being anti-loopers, and they like a bit of range, but some of them be a bit slower. Some of them be normal speed. Some killers like a very anti-chase. Some have slowdown. So they all have their own bits. They all have their own bits and pieces. So if I was starting out my first few pieces of advice are, do not worry about kills. Do not worry about winning. Don't worry about perks. Don't worry about add-ons. Don't worry about nothing. When you first go into your first few games, all you want to do is get used to finding survivors, getting used to the loops in the tunnels, and get used to chasing them. That's your 3 main priorities. You have a lot to manage as killer as it is, right? You got to think about it. You got to manage so many gens. You got to manage about which gens are being done to try and get yourself a free gen to give yourself the strongest position. You got to manage about which survivors are injured and who's best to go for and who's hooked and who isn't. You got to worry about your 2 exit gates and where they're going to be at the end. You got to worry about hook placement. You got to worry about how people are going to save and you're going to get around it. There is a lot as a killer to manage. So I personally, on my first few games, wouldn't worry about perks and add-ons. You just want to get used to chasing, M1s, getting hits, get going. You've got all your overview now of every killer, so choose who you think will be best. There are some that will be easier than others. Like I say, don't go for like Nurse first. Don't go for Spirit first, because you're not going to understand the loops. You're not going to understand how their abilities work, and you're just going to have a really, really rough time. So get used to that. Then start introducing perks, because then you haven't got to go, oh, I've downed someone. Oh yeah, I've got barbecue and chili. I need to hook someone. Oh, I've got scourge hook. I need to find a scourge hook. Where's the scourge hook? What's it look like? Oh, there it is. I've got to get them there. Oh, I've hit someone. That means they're oblivious now. I've got to take advantage of that. Don't worry about that. Just get used to the fundamentals of the game. That's all you want to do. Get used to the concrete fundamentals and then start adding in your perks. Then there's kind of 2 ways you can go about it. You can either take a strong build in general, i.e. you could take, say, 4 regression. Well, there's technically 3 ways you go about it. You could go a strong one way, i.e. a full regression build. So take Jolt, Nemesis's perk. So let's come over this. Let's say we're going to do a full gen regression build. We're going to take Discordants so we know where they are. We're going to take Overcharge, so when we hit, we hurt them more. We're going to take Eruption, so when we down them, and all the ones we've hit, they go. And then I could take, say, Jolt, so every time I hurt, I also do a bit. Or I could take, for instance, let's have a look here. Deadlock, so when they're done, I'm going to block the other one. But then, obviously, I've got the problem of I can't kick it. So I would say Call of Brine. So I know Call of Brine, Overcharge are going to affect when I hit them. When I hit them, it's going to activate Eruption anyway. I'm going to know when 2 are working on one, so I know what gen to go for most. And then when I do get hold of it and I knock them down, people are incapacitated and they knock stuff off. And then I can go rinse, repeat. So you can go that way with a build. So you know you're dedicated to one principle. Your other way you could go is say, right, my killer is Sadako. Sadako isn't the strongest in chase, so I'm going to build a build around her weakness. So I'm going to take Enduring. Pallet stuns are a lot quicker. I am going to take Agitation, so I've got speed to hit people when I picked up and I can get the hook very quickly. I'm going to take, let's say, Brutal Strength. So when I am hit, it's quicker and I can destroy the pallet because I've got no way of getting around pallets. And then I can take, let's say, Save the Best for Last. I can then get quicker every time I'm injuring people and do all that. I could take Jolt because I have to do an M1 attack, take it off. I can take, let's say, Franklin's. I'm going to have to M1. At least get rid of their items because I haven't got a strong way of countering it. I'm not Nurse. I can't counter medkits. I can't do a lot of gem regression very quickly. So you can work around their weaknesses as well. The other way you can do it is a sort of jack of all trades. So you can go, okay, I'm going to have a Nurse's Calling to find people. I'm going to have Agitation to help me with hooks. I'm going to have Blood Warden to help me with endgame. And then I'm going to take 1 here for gem regression. So let's say Eruption. So I've got Eruption for gem regression, Agitation to help with, say, Horde control, get into hooks, Blood Warden to help with endgame, Nurse's Calling to help find people. Or I can say, right, Agitation ain't the best. Let's say I need something for chase. I could take Fearmonger. It's going to stop sprint bursts and stuff like that. Still helps in chase. I could take, say, Haunted Ground helps you in chase because it's going to be an instant down now. I haven't got to worry when it goes off. So you can fit, say, 3 small parts, say, Gen Regression, something to find people, something for endgame, No Way Out, Node, Blood Warden, and then something as like a utility perk. So Hex Haunted Ground, Huntress Lullaby, for instance, something to affect skill checks, something that just is a utility perk that helps you on some way. So that's the 3 ways I go about builds personally. And then sometimes, yeah, you can just go fuck it and just go, yeah, we'll take that, we'll just take this, and we'll just take that, and we'll just take fucking this, and call it a fucking day and have a Mimi game. There's nothing wrong with Mimi games. Mimi games can be so fun. In terms of spending your blood points, obviously the new system is out. So let's say I have the shape. Info would be great, wouldn't it? So if we look at the shape, we have these 3 main perks, right? And they're all locked because I haven't unlocked them yet. So I have to get tier 1 of these on all killers, I have to prestige him 1. So I'll go through all this blood web, spending my blood points. Once it's all done, I click the middle, he levels up to level 1. All these tier 1 unlock for everybody. Tier 2 for everybody. Tier 3 for everybody. The only problem you got is don't bother getting all of them straight off the bat. What you're better off doing with the new system, in my mind, is right, find a killer you like. For instance, I like Sadako. Sadako's level 1. I know I have these 3 perks. I'm going to use Sadako and the others a lot. First, I'm going to dump a lot of blood points into her, because then I'm going to also unlock other perks, such as Sloppy Butcher and that, on the way. Get her to tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, whatever, wherever you want to take her to. Then start going through and tier 1ing all of these. Once you've tier 1 them all, then go to your favourites and dump the blood points in, because then you can earn the tier 2, tier 3 perks just going through the blood web. You haven't got to worry about tier 3ing everybody to get tier 3. It's just a shortcut. Where you want to tier 3 straight away is when a new killer now comes out. So when Wesker comes out, I know I haven't got to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. So we say 30 just to round it off. Let's say there was 30 killers and a new one comes out to make it 31. I've got to unlock 3 perks 30 times, 3 times. That is a lot. That is a lot of unlocking. Whereas you could just prestige him 3 times, boom, everybody has all these perks at once. That's the way to do the blood web. Now, when you get a bit going on, we've got add-ons and offerings. Add-ons will 9 times out of 10 modify the power in some way. So if we look at Sadako, we can get more blood points, which I have no idea why. I'm guilty as a hoarder. I hoard all my add-ons. I never take them. You can increase the manifestation invisibility duration. I can increase the intimate invisibility for 2 seconds. Turn TVs down by 12 seconds. Decrease the time it takes for us to get condemned by 12%. I can, when I hit people, 4 TVs come back on. Auras shown. Everybody hears the TVs go off. All sorts of things you can do, which will modify. I don't take on add-ons for a really weird reason. One, I feel if I don't take add-ons and the game goes really shit, I then don't feel I've lost out on my add-ons or my offerings. This is why I don't do it. It's weird. Plus, I'm a hoarder, and I just like playing it kind of on hard mode, never taking add-ons. And then when you come to offerings tend to do one of 3 things. You can edit the hatch spawn or the map, which would be, say, RPD badge, taking you to Haddonfield. You then have blood point ones. So these give you bonuses to your blood points, which could be good. Spam these in early game because you want all the blood points you can get. Once you're a bit more comfortable, just get as many blood points in as you can. Separate survivors, thicken the mists, don't really use. Separating can be very good. And You can moor your people, which means on their third hook, you kill them instead. These are anniversary event flans, which gives you blood point boosts. I, for some reason, aren't spending these and hoarding these as well. And then you got other boosts, bring the hooks closer together. So these kind of modify the RNG to an extent, but not in a huge, huge way. So don't always rely on them. And once these are used, they're constantly burnt. One of the nice things you can always do is take a black ward and then slam your 2 strongest add-ons on, which is normally your iridescence. But I personally don't take add-ons and offerings because I just don't. For some reason, I like hoarding them. And like I say, if I have a really shitty game, I don't feel like, oh, I've lost iridescent this and a purple that. Whatever. It takes a bit of the frustration of killer out. Now, obviously, toxicity is a big thing in this game. Survivors will teabag you. Survivors will flash you. Survivors will take the piss out of you. They will have a go at you in chat. Now, the problem you got is survivors have a horde mentality, i.e. there is 4 of them and there is only 1 of you. 4 people can bully 1 person a lot easier because they have power in numbers, especially in endgame chat. If survivors start ripping into you, calling you easy in chat, whatever, don't say anything, just close the thing, go into the next game, okay? Because that's all they're good at. Killers, in a way, can punish survivors by tunneling. Hello, Sadaka. Tunneling. They can punish by leaving people slugged, so not picking them up, refusing to pick them up and leaving them there. They can punish them by hitting them on hook. They can punish them by cornering them in the map and not letting them out. There's a few different things you can do. Of course she's doing it frequently, isn't she? She must like being a toxic killer. Don't let any of this get to you. You have to do as a killer what you have to do as a killer, right? I personally don't think it's fair to tunnel a survivor straight off the bat. If you're down to, say, 2 gens or 3 gens and you know they're in a very, very strong position, by all means, go into tunnel mode. Because you probably have no choice but to get a survivor out as quick as you can. Because you have to look at it this way. When you have 4 survivors, if you chase a survivor, that's only 1 you're occupying that isn't doing anything. The other 3 are doing something. When you hook them, or when you've downed them, a survivor might then come to irritate you to try and stop the hook, or they're coming to then do the unhook. So that's 2 then occupied, 2 then doing gens. As soon as you've taken a survivor out, you've got 1 survivor that you're chasing, 2 might be working. If you then down him and you put him on hook, that's 1 survivor on hook, 1 that might be doing gens, and the other one that's got to save. It's only 1 person on gens. Or in the best case scenario, you've got 1 on hook, 1 trying to save, and 1 you're chasing. As soon as you get survivors down to 3, you then have a loop where they're not doing anything to progress the game, and that is the best scenario you can have. And that is why a lot of killers tunnel early, is to get that scenario. But obviously it is fucking shit for the survivor you're playing against. Now, by all means, if you're having teabagging shit faces or blinders in your face, go to fucking town on them. I would. I've done it. Let them have a taste of their own medicine. And at the end of the day, it can be fun to do and let some steam off. But if you're playing against fair survivors, play fair and respectable back, okay? That's only my advice. You can't do anything about the toxicity, but you can use toxicity to your advantage. I.e., you go ahead and you find... Because you have to remember, this game has a huge element of psychology to it. I've had a game where I almost lost, but then I started farming, but then I turned on the survivors by farming to win, which was very fucking dirty, but it was also hilarious. You can also do something like get a survivor, put them on the hook, start smacking them all the time. It's what we call ringing the dinner bell, right? Ringing the dinner bell. It infuriates other survivors because they think you're then a toxic killer. They then stop doing what they're doing and come to bully you. Use that then to your advantage to win the game. There's no reason you can't use psychology. Survivors will do it to you. They will try flashing you all the time. They will teabag in front of you to get your attention because they want to be chased. Because they're either the strongest chaser in their group, which means you'll burn the most time chasing them, or they're equipped for a chase. i.e. they have sprint burst, they have live, they have perks to find you, they have perks to get around, they have iron will to make them harder to find. So don't always let yourself be baited by survivors that want to be chased. If they want to be chased, don't chase them. Go for the weakest link. That is always your best bet. Then once you've got around that and you've broken their link, so you got them down to 3, you're going to have a much, much easier time. The other thing you've got to be aware of is cheating. Now, this game is notorious, unfortunately, for not having a strong anti-cheat system. I've come across cheats, I've come across hacks. I do not condone it, I don't suggest you do it. However, there is lately a lot of subtle cheat going on, i.e. people doing gates a bit quicker than they should be, or just giving survivors like 2, 4, or even just 5% boost to their normal run speed, which makes a huge distance in chase. I had one game with Sadako where I was chasing someone for fucking ever, and I'm convinced it is because they had a slight speed increase. And you'll normally find the telltale sign of this is they have a private profile as well, or they won't talk to you in endgame. Best thing you can do there is grab your evidence, submit it on the forums, give it to behaviour, let them deal with it. They'll find out one way or another if they're cheating. But don't let it get to you. My final piece of advice to you is you cannot win every game. It cannot happen. It's kind of accepted that for a killer, if you get 2 kills, it's a draw. If you get 3 kills, it's a win. Because you've killed more than people have escaped. You will get 0 kills in a game. It will happen. Whether you've been playing a long time, a stupidly long time, or just starting. It will happen. It's happened to me. It's happened to Whatstava. It's happened to Deb Plays. It's happened to Red. All the top tier players out there, it happens to. They will go against a Swift they cannot beat. And that is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes it's the fact that I personally believe high-end Swifts are stronger than killers in high MMR, but strong killers will always trump low-end survivors. I also think it can be down to random game, i.e. it could be the wrong map, you've got perks that just don't work on the map, a killer just doesn't work on the map, the gem placement is shit, a bit of luck come their way, a bit of ping did you over. It could be a whole number of things that lead to you having a really shitty game. And there is nothing wrong as a killer if you're having a really shit time. Just go into the corner, face the corner, let the survivors end the game, and just go on to the next one. Nothing wrong with it. There's no need to always DC unless it's seriously shit and you don't mind taking the 5-minute penalty. But I personally think you're better off going to the corner, waiting. The game has to end at some point. Let it go. Get your blood points. Move on to the next one. Do not let it get to you. Okay? So that's kind of my overview of what I think you should do starting off, going over everybody in killers and what you should do. So don't use perks at first. Don't use add-ons at first. Just get used to the basic game elements. Get used to chase. Get used to tiles. And then from there, start adding on. Go who you want and build up and then have fun. Okay?